Hello there, lovely folks of YouTube. Ren here. I want to talk about one of the activities that I frequently find myself having to do in the springtime. This is potting or repotting my plants in this case. I'm going to repot this little fellow here. This is my Clary sage or Salvia sclerea. It's in a nice little pot. This is the pot I had it in last year, but I want to move it into a bigger pot to give it a little more room to grow. So I'm just going to show you real briefly how we do that. This is the pot I'm going to move it into, a little bigger, a lot deeper. I've already filled this up with soil, potting soil about halfway. You want to make sure that you're using something specifically for potting. The difference between potting soil is it tends to be much lighter in weight. It has these little bits here. This is called perlite, and that's actually a native stone. It's a very light native stone that helps with drainage so that the roots have adequate drainage when they're in the pot. Okay? Very simple here. You can see all those roots coming out of the bottom? That means that this pot is root bound, okay? The plant has basically grown roots all the way throughout this pot and needs more space. So what we're going to do is I'm going to just kind of loosen up the soil around the edges here. Just kind of going around the edges gently, trying to disturb as little of the root ball as I can. And I'm letting that potting soil fall into the new pot as I'm doing this. Just kind of getting my fingers way down along the edge to kind of pull that root ball out. There we go. I can feel it starting to loosen there. There we go. This is a little tricky because these pots are heavy, ceramic, and they don't have a good handhold on them. So I'm just doing the best I can. Just kind of gently working it out. There we go. All right, now, you see all this stuff right here, all these roots here? These need to be loosened up, otherwise the plant will strangle itself on its own roots. So I'm literally just going to take my fingers and just comb it out. Yes, you are breaking a few roots in the process, but that is okay. We want those roots to be loosened up. The plant will grow new roots to replace anything that you break. But if you leave it like that, the plant won't actually spread out into its new pot, and it will be stunted in its growth. So you also have to consider that most of the roots are actually inside this little ball here. We're just loosening up the stuff that's on the outside. There we go. Keep that nice and loose and shaggy. Just like that. Now we've got a plant that is ready to move into its new home. Very simply, we're just going to plop it in there. And we're going to make sure that the crown, the top of the plant, is about level with the top of the pot. All right, now all that empty space around, we're going to fill in with new potting soil. This is a brand new bag. I get my potting soil at Costco, which is why I have this huge, ginormous bag here. I'm just going to put the soil in, and I'm spilling it all over myself. It's dirty work, but somebody's got to do it, right? So I'm putting the soil in around the edges, and I'm using my fingers to kind of tamp it down into that edge. We don't want to leave any air pockets in there. Ooh, I do love the smell of potting soil, though. Oh my gosh. So I know I mentioned I grew up in a gardening household. So like potting soil and fertilizer are like good smells from my childhood. For most people, like the good smells from their childhood, they might think of like the smell of grandma's kitchen or something like that. For me, it's the smell of a garden center or a nursery greenhouse. That's like the good smell from my childhood. So yeah, this is like triggering some really good memories for me. I think one more should do it. Try and salvage some of this that I spilled all over my jeans. There we go. All right, now this is still a little on the loose side, and you can see there's dirt all over our plant. That's that's okay, because the last step we need to do before we're done is watering. Anytime you move a plant or you disturb its roots in any way, you want to make sure you give it a nice, good drink of water afterwards. Watering our pot after we've repotted it also helps to settle down some of that soil in there. And of course, I'm on a hill, so I got to straighten this out a little bit. Let's see, right here. I think it'll be flat. There we go. Also, my watering can has a hole in it, so it kind of leaks everywhere all over me. I just deal with it. Someday I'll buy a new one. We'll see. We'll see when that happens. I'm a big one of making do with things that work as long as I can. I hate to buy something new if this one's still fairly serviceable. It's just mildly annoying. Alright, so you can see some of that soil. Now when it's wet, we can kind of tamp it down a little bit better as well. Make sure we're getting our little sage leaves out of the soil. We don't want to bury them. There we go. And I'm just going to keep watering this until the water is coming out of the bottom of the pot. That way I know that we've watered everything in there. So let's see where we're at here. Not quite, almost. That's another reason why you want to use potting soil. It weighs less, so it's a lot easier to move your pots around. Because a big pot can get very heavy very fast. Here we go. So this one is done. You can see that water's pouring out the bottom there. That will continue to drain for a little while, but in the meantime, we're going to move this over to my patio where I keep all my other potted plants to get lots of sun there. Clary sage is one of the plants that I do like to grow in a pot. There are certain plants, particularly ones that are native to the Mediterranean, rosemary, sage, a couple others, lavender is a big one. They don't like wet feet, meaning they don't like soil that hangs on to moisture a lot. Unfortunately, having native clay soil means that they don't really like my soil, period. So I have tried to grow them in the ground in the past, hasn't worked very well. So now I resort to growing them in pots, so that way I can at least have them. But yeah, this will join my little pots in the patio. I'll be having a few more joining out there soon, once more of my seedlings have gotten bigger. But you'll get to see it there in its glory. And I'll do a more detailed informational video on this one in the future as well, once it's gotten a little bigger and a little more interesting. So I hope I'll see you then. Hope this video finds you well. See you soon.